Kia ora, good evening. Southland's population has rebounded with a growth of around 3% between 2006 and 2013. An increase of nearly 2,500 people means the region now plays host to 93,339, according to the 2013 census released today by Statistics New Zealand. Government statistician Liz McPherson says the census shows a turnaround for what was a declining population in Southland. The region is the 11th largest by population of New Zealand's 16 regional council areas and has been the 10th fastest growing since the last census. New measures from the Ministry of Social Development have been announced this week in an effort to prevent beneficiary fraudsters from repeatedly ripping off New Zealand's welfare system. Associate Social Development Minister Chester Burrows says the new measures will be aimed at those who previously have been convicted of welfare fraud and will discourage them from repeat offending. The low trust client rules will include requiring known fraudsters to have face-to-face meetings with single case managers, as well as holding partners of dishonest beneficiaries accountable if they are complicit with the offending. Social Development will also aim to work more closely with Inland Revenue to cut the number of illegitimate payments being made, Mr Burrows says. Mr Burrows says the changes are the next step in a package of initiatives that were announced earlier in the year to combat welfare fraud, and says over 3,000 false benefit claims have been cancelled since its introduction. Invercargill Prison Fellowship Chair Bill Cunliffe says arresting the rate of prisoner reoffending upon leaving prison benefits the whole community. This weekend, a special seminar aimed at stopping reoffending is to be held with community rehabilitation specialist Mark Beale, the keynote speaker. Hunter Andrews asked Mr Cunliffe about his work at Invercargill Prison and the upcoming seminar.
I'm part of the prison ministry up there under the leadership of Jeff Lowe, the chaplain, and so I spend a lot of time there in the chapel talking with prisoners in the Christian context, and so I'm up there quite a bit on a one-on-one, on a group situation, and talking with them as a large group.
And what do you see there? Is there can you see that temptation that you can understand when they are released, that those temptations come back, don't they, and the chance of reoffending does occur?
Well, they're battling all the time, actually. Even in prison, they're battling against the elements there, and so they have a real struggle in trying to offload what they've come with, so they're prepared to go out afresh. And of course, sometimes they're only halfway there when they leave, but they're on their way, and then it might be only a matter of weeks, months, or a couple of years maybe, and they're finding that it's such a struggle that they go back to their old habits and ways.
And to prevent this as a community, it's good for all of us, isn't it, as a community to intervene and prevent this?
Well, it's got to be good if we know where they are at any one time and we can actually rally round and help them, because it could be a property that's burgled next time, it could be a mother who's actually attacked in some way. So it's really up to us to try and rehabilitate these people, and for our own protection, if nothing else.
Tell us about the workshop this weekend and who's involved and who you're hoping will come along.
Well, we're hoping that there'll be a whole mix of people from the community, but it's the Prison Fellowship who's running this, is a Christian group who wants to help in the role of coordinating people to get in behind the corrections and Salvation Army and these other community groups that are already established. Yeah.
And Mark Beale, who is this gentleman?
Mark Beale's been asked to come down from Auckland. We're flying him specially down because of his vast experience in his particular situation in Auckland. They have a prison in his area, and he's been very, very important in the rehabilitation of prisoners in his area by going up to prison, by helping them out there, but also by involving his community in rehabilitating them.
And the rehabilitation seminar will be held this Saturday morning at the Central Baptist Church Hall. New Zealanders are thinking big when it comes to internet plans. Statistics New Zealand's latest internet service provider survey shows a 117% year-on-year jump in the number of connections to data packages ranging from 50 to 100 gigabytes. The most popular range is, however, the smaller 20 to 50 gigabytes option, which boasts 800,000 connections. This allows for the streaming of high-definition videos for between 1 and 2 hours each day. Information and Communication Technology Statistics Manager Hamish Hill says New Zealanders are looking to bigger data caps to accommodate their ever-expanding virtual lives as the internet becomes a bigger part of everyday life. Coming up after the break, 2 more Civic Honours recipients. Welcome back. For the past 16 years, Invercargill local Maureen Smith has volunteered her own time to make the oncology waiting room at Southland Hospital that little bit more comfortable. Olivia Taylor-Peebles asked her about the Civic Honour Award she received in recognition of her work as a Cancer Society volunteer and why what she does is so important to her.
Cancer Society have volunteers who do baking, and I call into Cancer Society on my way here, pick up some nice biscuits and homemade things, and then when people arrive I can offer them a tea and a coffee, something nice to eat, and hopefully make it a little bit more homely than a hospital waiting room.
So why do you do it?
I had cancer myself, and then when I finished work I thought I'd quite like to get involved, and just went to Cancer Society and said I'd like to be a volunteer. And Leslie Gray, who worked there then, said, I think, we've been thinking of having someone go down to oncology, and would you give it a try? And I said, well, yes, I would. And it was a bit nerve-wracking at first. The first few weeks I was quite nervous because you suddenly appear in the waiting room, and it was hard to strike up conversations. And then I found that the same people were coming back, every 2 or 3 weeks or every week, and then so there were faces that you got to know, and it got easier, and I'm still here.
And how long have you been doing it for?
This particular job I've been doing for 16 years.
Were you surprised by the nomination?
I was. It was a great surprise. It just came in the mail one day, and you have no idea who's nominated you.
Do you think recognition of this sort of volunteer work is important?
I think so. It's very nice to realise that people think it's worthwhile, because there are, I suppose, thousands of people out there volunteering for all sorts of things, maybe not on a weekly basis, but they're there doing things like the people who do the baking for us, and people driving patients to appointments. Lots and lots of people out there quietly doing little jobs, and it makes the wheels go round.
Well deserved. Fellow Civic Honour Award recipient Architect McMahon has been honoured for his long-standing work with Anderson Park and the restoration of historic buildings around the city. Mr Heslin's passion for historic architecture is obvious when he refers to the restoration of the New South Wales Bank building in the Crescent.
This building is the result of being a member of the Troopers Memorial Corner Charitable Trust. That was developed before the previous inner city redevelopment, when the people of Invercargill were desperate about the condition of this building in a prime situation. They were desperate about Invercargill. Bruce Maher, who is chairman of Troopers Memorial Corner Trust, called a public meeting, and people went along, and I finished up as one of the 12 people on the committee for that as trustees. We managed to buy the building for $30,000, and that was through being able to get funding from another trust I was on. We bought it and we raised over $700,000 for this building and totally restored it. When we did that, we had a price for structurally strengthening it from one source, and that was over $600,000. We choked and went back to another more reliable source, and we finally did the building for about $170,000, structurally strengthened it. And we strengthened it to 2/3 of the then current building code requirements for an existing building.
Which is well inside what we're looking at now. Let's talk about the city as you see it coming in the next 20 years, when we're going to have to deal with some issues with buildings, obviously in Invercargill with what happened in Christchurch. What do you think the outlook is for some of these buildings?
I think you've got to make your mind up which buildings you want to keep. You have to keep some of them. You have to restore some of them to keep the fabric of the background of your city. If you destroy everything, then you're starting off brand new, and it's going to take a century before you get any sort of character or standard set in the building, in the city. I've already presented a list of the buildings that I consider worthy of saving in Invercargill, and the other thing to do, I think the council has to get in mode and photograph the street facades in the city, all the streets, so that in the future, if anything's demolished, anything that's put in its place should represent the character or improve the character of what was there before.
So you want the council to get proactive about that, but are you expecting to be involved in the process as this unfolds? So you have unique skills.
Well, I was involved, lucky to be invited to be involved in the inner city working group for the current inner city redevelopment. And I kept mentioning heritage all the way through. Of course, after Christchurch, heritage and brick buildings are dirty words, and we're all panic-stricken because we think the same thing's going to happen all the way through New Zealand. It's not. It will happen. We're in an earthquake country, but we've just got to make our minds up what buildings we want to do, and perhaps one of the ways to do it is, instead of doing individual buildings, is to take a whole block and strengthen everything all the way through, because then you have a bigger area and more chance of making things more permanent, if you possibly can, than doing individual buildings. It's another way of doing things.
And that's it from the news team tonight. Sports up next. Good night.